Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, I was playing with some items the other day around Gilding Flakes, and I had a couple of ideas that I wanted to carry on a little further. So we are going to experiment with them today. I am trying out a new glitter paste to me. I have been on the hunt for one. Now, this Hero Arts one came in this beautiful cardboard packaging. I mean, it seems like a lot, but that's okay. It's very beautiful and well packaged, and the product is very usable, not dry at all. It's nice and moist and good to go, so that's all good things for me. I am wanting to put down a little bit of texture in the background. Now, one of these cards is going to turn out pretty colourful, and the other is just going to be medium. So I want some background texture, and I'm going to use the Gina brick wall with this Hero Arts paste. But the brick wall stencil is quite structured and even and beautiful, and I want it to be a little less so, just a tiny little bit. So I did think either I was going to rip a large piece of paper and put that down the side of where I wanted it to go, or I would just use a little bit of mint tape, because I didn't want this to be the entire background. I just want it to be a partial background, but I didn't want it to be quite so neat and even and sort of divisive on the edge. So I'm just going to use some masking magic strips to just block off a couple of those bricks. Sometimes I do one brick, sometimes I do a couple of bricks, just blocking them off so it's not quite so even and a nice edge. Yes, I could sort of half swipe, put the stencil over the whole thing and then sort of half swipe down with the paste, but that wasn't quite the look I felt like I was going for either. So that's okay. I like the whole bricks. I just don't want them to end so evenly. So that's what I was doing. Anyhow, I'm going to mask off a few of these, and you can see that I've got the stencil probably about 3/4, 2/3 of the way across the piece of paper. And then with the stencil, it's important to go with the design of the stencil rather than like downwards, where you're more likely to drag it underneath. I go along from like left to right with this one, or right to left, depending on where you're putting your paste, but I'm going to use this gorgeous glitter paste. Now, I assume that this is going to dry pretty clear, but with some beautiful sparkle and glitter. Now, I think that you can make similar. I would not say the same. I actually think, now that I've seen this product dry, I wouldn't say that I have the ability to make the same, but similar would be, like a Ranger matte medium with a whole lot of glitter mixed in. You could mix your own, make your own. So that's one option. But I'm trying out a couple of, options. Anyhow, then a color that I usually wouldn't reach for is going to be Villainous Potion Distress Oxide Ink. Now, I just want to show you a little something. I'm holding this with my fingers down the bottom and doing some ink blending. I'm trying to get it mediumly even. I know I'm going to be adding things on top here, so it doesn't have to be perfection. I do want it to be kind of light. Villainous Potion is a very deep, dark purple, which I love, but this wasn't meant to be quite as overpowering as that. I just want this to be the background. Now, you can actually see where my fingers were holding on. You can see like the oils or whatever that were on my fingers have made the blend much less even down the bottom. It's a little harder to see on camera, but just a really interesting point to pick up. So if you have some mint tape or some like masking tape that you can put sticky side up and pop your fingers down on that, or like a post-it note, and pop your fingers on the sticky side and protect whatever you are intending on inking. Now, it popped into my head that while I was doing this, to get something that was going to coordinate, I could use the ink from the Villainous Potion and then the glitter paste from the Hero Arts glitter, and I could make a purple glitter paste. Now, again, if you're wanting to make your own, you could add just a drop or two of re-inker, or do what I did and smush it down onto an acrylic block, and then you could add something like matte medium, but maybe even something a bit thicker, because honestly I think that would almost end up too wet. too sort of slimy. This is a nice paste consistency. But anyhow, have a play around and see what you've got. I'm going to add in this beautiful purple glitter now that I have on top of this beautiful uneven bricked background that we have created. And this is even though the stencil is quite delicate and quite fine, as I said, if you go with the pattern of the stencil, then you tend to get a really crisp, clear edges, which is what we're after. And then when it comes to the next part of this, as I said, I want to work with some gilding flakes today. You by all means, and most traditionally, work with gilding flakes and some sort of tacky glue. Dries when tacky glue. I am not a big fan of the mess factor of that and the, just glue. And so I prefer to use some double-sided adhesive sheets. By all means, you can use a double-sided adhesive tape to get these looks directly onto your project. You can die cut out adhesive sheets to get shapes out of the gilded, the gilding flakes. But for me, I just like to do a whole sheet and then I do die cutting or then I do cut strips or whatever, because that just means I get one whole mess done at one time. And even though it's not messy, there is like little bits and pieces, right? And I find that the best way to clean up is either with something like a Swiffer cloth or a damp baby wipe or damp paper towel. Give it a swish round and it's all good. We're all good. And for example, in this one, I'm working on a roughly 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of double-sided adhesive. And then what I do is I tend to pull the adhesive backing off and then re-pop it back down so it's covering half. And I can kind of have somewhere to rest my fingers and hold on to it while I do the top half. And then I remove it and do the bottom half in the flakes as well. I have chosen to go with a mix of gold and silver in this one. As I mentioned, there are lots of different types of gilding flakes. Lots of companies do them. I've linked some of my favorites down below for you as well. There are now greens and blues and all the metals that you can think of. Lots of beautiful mixes available. Now, I have gone ahead and die cut these hearts from Honeybee Hearts out of them. But the next stage that I want to do is embossing them. I have this embossing folder called Lined Circles, and this, when you just get a product and you think, I can just see wood circles, I can see half rainbows, I can see fingerprints, I can see, you see all the things, all the different things in the product of what you think you can turn this into, and I was just like, yep, this one is good. But I didn't see embossed hearts on my radar, and yet here we are, and I just think this is really nice. I actually think most embossing folders are going to look stunning. It's obviously going to bring out different, depending on which angles you look at the metals that you've done, it's going to really create different elements of shine and different angles of reflection. So really, really fun when you are going to emboss your gilded items, whatever you've got, die cuts in my case. So let's put these together into cards. The backgrounds are dry, it is glittery, it is shiny, but the metals are pretty shiny from the gilded flakes, and so that is definitely an easy focal point. You are not really going to outshine them because they truly are, the focal point here. I'm going to cut these down ever so slightly because I'm not a big fan of my inked edges. They always end up a little bit darker for me, and I prefer just to do a really tiny slice of those off. And then same goes with the matting layers and anything else that you are going to create. I have this set here from Simon Says Stamp, and I've got So Happy For You. I die cut, stamped and die cut a whole lot of these, and I keep them in the back of the packaging so that anytime I pick up the stamp, I can just turn it over and see that I've got plenty of stamped and die cut images, or words in this case, or sentiments, good to go. I'm going to add a black matting layer to this one, just a very, very fine, about a 1/16 or so of an inch matting layer. I honestly don't usually measure, I just measure it against my card front. I find that the easiest way and most reliable way for me, and then it's a case of popping these together. Now, I did choose purple because purple is obviously it's fairly dark and it's also fairly bright and bold. And so it's usually a color I wouldn't really quickly reach for, but I chose it because it's going to contrast beautifully with the golds and the silvers that we have chosen. So that's what I wanted here, and I think embossing these hearts just brings them up to the next level, and then it's a matter of wherever you want to put them. I chose to sort of go for a little random sprinkling going up the bricks. Again, that brick is just that sort of background texture, but you can still very, very clearly see the hearts, of course. And then I'll pop this one down onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base. That is this card done. You can see when I move this around, it is just, I love that shine. This one is going to be a mini stamp set from Gina called Dreams Come True. I just love this little sentiment. So I'm going to pop this one on first. This one is the clear, sort of more clear Hero Arts glitter. It's a little bit tricky to see in the video, but it's definitely there. This one, of course, is going to be much more subtle, particularly versus the bright purple that we have just done. And then again, I'm going to look for some of those hearts. I'm going to do a mixture of big and small. I did a few different sizes just to give myself some options. I honestly think any embossing folder that you've got would just look stunning. If you put your gilded flakes items through an embossing folder, it really adds another element. So heaps of fun to work with and try out. Now, if you use foam tape like this and you struggle to put it down on the first go, like I had a couple of goes at here, you can always put liquid glue on the back of your foam tape. That is a great tip, and that way you still get the dimension, but you have the ability to be able to move it around. And clearly, I potentially should have done it, but it ended up okay, and I got it pretty square in the end. Give it a good press down, and then you can add in any final touches, but I love these as is. These catch the eye, and it sort of reminds me of a fingerprint in the middle of those hearts, and that in itself is something sort of like another element, a little bit special, a fingerprint in your heart. So anyhow, these are my 2 cards for today. Leave me a comment down below if you love working with gilding flakes and your favorite techniques with them. I'll be interested to have a read. But other than that, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. At the end of this video, there are some more videos that YouTube thinks you'll love, so I'll see you then. Bye.